Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie and we are here today. I'm so excited. We're here with Chris and Daryl, and they are going to show us their park strip. So this is part of my series, What Do Water-Wise Landscapes Look Like in Utah? And you are going to be completely astounded at what these two have accomplished. So let's show you the park strip. I'm going to let Chris kind of introduce it, give you a little bit of history of how they've done it, and then tell you some astonishing facts about this park strip. So go ahead, Chris. Let's look at your park strip and see what it looks like.
Okay.
So look at the color on it already. So right now this is near the end of May, right?
Yeah, this is toward the end of May in 2023. So this park strip was put in 2018. So this would be the 6th season that we've had this, being the first season we built it. Some of this stuff started out in full sun and has eventually become almost full shade over the years due to the other trees that were inevitably going to come up around it. So some of these things have been already planned out for some shade, but we didn't really take into account as big as this tree would get. One quick thing about the rocks were gathered with a BLM permit, and were taken out from a place past Tooele, Utah. The rest of the rocks that are also large were salvaged from local home renovations and things, and those are from Red Butte Garden area, and those were pioneer hewn stones for foundations around here. And so all these large rocks were actually gathered from an area it's a big wash from Lake Bonneville. So all of these rocks came from right at the same area. So there'd be white rocks, red rocks, rolled things that had been all washed into one little canyon by Lake Bonneville. So some of these rocks come from there, some of them are salvaged. Some of the biggest ones that we have on the corners all come from what was washed up by Lake Bonneville out by Tooele. This rolled lava rock here was definitely rolled by Lake Bonneville and deposited out by Tooele in Skull Valley. So all of these plants right now, this entire park strip has not been hand watered at all. This is the 3rd season, going on the 3rd season, that it has had no external water besides rain.
Repeat that.
No water, no drip lines. This has never had a drip line in it. It was hand planted or hand watered for the first seasons, and that is the caveat to this, is that these plants weren't just put in here and left and abandoned. They were taken care of for years and years. Then they were slowly weaned off the water, and we have not had any kind of water on this besides rain. So lots of the plants that I loved in the beginning that were so colorful have died, and this is what's left. But that's the way that we like to explain it, is that these are the hardiest of the hardy. But it still can look beautiful without thousands and thousands of flowers. It's a good example of getting some quality plants that have the right requirements for what you're looking for. The conditions we were looking for when we bought plants is that they couldn't take more than 2 times a week water, which is pretty much the bare minimum. And a lot of them, lobelia, things like that, we really wanted to put in. It just took too much water. So they had to have a very specific watering requirement, and at the time sun requirements, because we knew this was full sun. So that was what we went into the nurseries each season. So when you go to a nursery, you'll get the spring flowers. So if you do your whole park strip in the spring, all you'll have is spring flowers, unless you can get to the nurseries throughout the season to grab things, because this will just be blooming. Something will be blooming all the way till the snow drops on it. There'll be something colorful in here, either sedum or something like that. So Color was the big thing. A lot of the color I thought out in the beginning, where yellow and purple being contrasting colors came up at the same time. So I really thought out colors of things, as well as the hardiness and the growth pattern, how big it might get. So other things kind of help each other out, but some crowd out, some die. That catmint usually gets enormous. So what I found is right before it blooms, I'll chop it all the way back. There is low catmint, but this is just a catmint that usually gets as tall as that yarrow, and then just a rainstorm will destroy it. So what I found is you have to do it before it blooms. I chop it off, chop the big canopy off, and then that's what it looks like. And it stays relatively small for the rest of the season.
I love it. So can we go through a little bit really quickly, some of the plants that, show us your favorite ones.
Sure. The color guard yucca here definitely is, when it blooms, that's the showstopper. When that blooms, it's 5 or 6 feet tall, and for these two yuccas were actually planted as a pair, somewhat symmetrical, and over the years of one being completely shaded by other plants, mostly desert 4 o'clocks and other things, that over the years that this one on the north end, or this end, has just accumulated a lot more growth, and it just does a lot better. So once again, the plants around the other plants just have so much of an influence on what goes on with them. So you
one
can
thing to think about.
Yeah, you can have great ideas on paper, but over time, with things dying and things, just plan on rolling with it, and just call it part of the design and say, yeah, I planned on it. But yeah, things have changed a lot. These are Hesperaloe parviflora. That's the Latin name for those. A lot of people have seen them, red yucca, false yucca, and those have really died back over the winter. They took a serious hit from mostly probably crown rot because of just the amount of snow that was on them. So eventually some of those will come back and possibly fill that area back in. It started out with a lot of sedum tiles, Lowe's garden tiles with a bunch of different types of sedum, and some of these are just the remnants of those garden tiles that have stuck around. Green dragon's blood, blue spruce, sedum, and so a lot of these are just what is left of many types of sedums that were put it in one spot. The perennial sedums that get really tall, I stayed away from. The ground cover sedum is what I found the most interesting and has been the most hardy over time. So some of these plants, this is called blue pearl. That's somewhat of a cross between the perennial and a ground cover. It doesn't get real tall, but the leaves just are this really unusual color that is fun. So a lot of this stuff is some of the best sedum that you can get for between paver stones is this sedum right here, not the dandelion. That's called sedum album, and that's called coral carpet would be the cultivar name, but if you look up sedum album, like an album or a CD, or it's sedum album, that's the Latin name for that. And that stuff is the best. It's the shortest of all the sedum that I've ever seen. And it fills in almost like a moss. It will fill in so tight that no weeds or anything can get through it because it grows so tight together. After the end of the season, that will be just so packed in there that no weeds can get through it. It's just, so it's called coral carpet, sedum album. So a lot of these there's some columbines and things that don't mind a little bit of shade so they don't get burned up.
What is this purple guy right here?
That is called Blue Star. We got it at Red Butte. It's, I forgot the name of that. A lot of these came from Red Butte, Mill Creek. All the local nurseries are represented here somewhere. We call this Pokerville, like Tokerville down in southern Utah, but these are Nephophia. These are poker plants.
Poker. You've got some over here.
Yeah, that's a foxtail lily.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah, that's a yellow foxtail lily, and that's a Prince's plume that's coming up next to it. That's a Utah native. You see those in southern Utah that are massive plants, but that has a beautiful like yellow brush, like a scrub brush like flower that goes on the top. But the foxtail lilies grow, you know, this tall, and it's almost like the seeds start to form before the flower had even finished. So the bottom will be formed before the top has even flowered. It's really strange. But so, yep, all of these. Yarrow is always a good one if you're looking for tall plants. But I would say out of all of these, the tiny little sedums are the kings of all of this. They've survived over everything else. So sedum is by far my favorite plant in here.
I love it. Now talk to me a little bit about your desert 4 o'clock too. I love how it looks right now, but you were saying something earlier about them.
Yep, these, if those plants were left unchecked, those 3 plants would cover this entire park strip if we let them. That plant gets enormous. That would easily cover this park strip by the end of the summer. But the reason why it's left there and the reason why we enjoy it so much is because of the bees, and it's obvious when they take the Pepsi challenge, when they're faced with all of these other flowers that are in bloom, this certain type of bee is just completely covering the desert 4 o'clock. So there's something to that. There must be a native plant for them. There's something. So they love the desert 4 o'clocks, but be prepared that if that's the only plant you want in your park strip, that's a great one. Yep, the bees will love you. Yep, it would totally fill this. So we have to keep that in check. But it will still flower, and you can still have flowers and trim it as needed.
Yes.
And so this was dug down. When we first did this, we dug a swale that goes way down and then comes back up. Okay. And so the idea is that these rocks should always be below the grade of the sidewalk.
So they're not falling into
the cheater that I've seen that is a no-no is don't put a border that's rickety and then think the rocks are going to stay put. Like, you have to do the work to dig the swale and get those rocks below the grade of the sidewalk. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. So what it also does is it catches a lot of water under there. So when it does rain, there's enough room for it under there. Under all those rocks, there's gallons and gallons of space for that water, instead of running into the gutter, now has been contained in the park strip and it's being used. So that might be one reason why we don't have to water as much, is because we've dug this swale completely around both of these sections. So it's deep too. It goes way down and then back up.
That is really brilliant.
Yeah, so then everything has been planted back from it and then has grown a little bit. But as you see, nothing can touch the sidewalk, rocks or plants, because people walk here all the time. And one thing a lot of things I want to point out is things that I've done wrong that I want to point out. Is that what happens is those big rocks and plants are so close to the curb there that people will pull their cars in, and all of a sudden they're faced with rocks and plants and things to try to get out of their car. If I were to ever do this again or do something different with this would have been flagstone or something quite a ways out. Okay. So when people get out of their car, they're not running into desert 4 o'clocks and huge boulders. It looks pretty, but the function of it has been lost too. So if I were to redo this, and this is where we started the project, so I couldn't really have known this before there. If I were to redo this, I would have never put rocks or plants very close to the curb. I would have backed that out and put a lot more flagstone or way low things, so when you swing your door out, you don't clip those rocks. But the main thing that we always want to make sure that they know is that it was taken care of for 3 years, then it was left. Otherwise, they think
Yeah.
that they can just put that in there. And
Well, thank you so much for sharing this. I think it is absolutely gorgeous. You've done an amazing job,
Thanks,
both of
Molly.
you. It's amazing. This is a wonderful, wonderful example of a water-wise landscape idea that you can do. You can expand this, contract it, you can open it up, leave space in the middle of it. You know, you could have a whole front yard of this
Yep.
and be completely water-wise. So thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Go put in a water-wise landscape and have a wonderful garden adventure.